you had a still shot basically of a cup on a table for up to 5 seconds in this show. Why? If the Jedi are so powerful they can sense these things, how come no one sensed anything?
Okay, so she went out into space. She had a suit on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just
Mm-hmm.
unlike Leia, who went out into space and Mary Poppins her way back onto her ship.
Back in.
She cannot just immediately use the Force, which I love. I think that's fantastic.
So they kind of combined the two movies into this, which that's the thing with Star Wars is there's so many callbacks that it's find something new.
Hello, all of you wonderful people out there in podcast land. Welcome to another episode of Black and White Reviews. My name is Will.
My name is Chuck.
And there is no Lee. There is not going to be a Lee. He is on vacation, away.
He's glamping. Camping. He's camping.
He's camping?
Camping.
Okay. Good for him.
He's camping.
Okay.
Yeah.
Camping?
He's camping.
Is it real
He's
camping? Is it real camping, or is it like a one of those pre-made camp areas that are like at the foot of Mount Washington, like in Conway?
No, this is a campground.
Okay.
And it's on a little lake. It is in the middle of nowhere. The funny thing is he's in his 30-year-old makeshift RV. Is it a trailer? Like
He actually
took
that out. He actually.
Oh yeah. He's like, before he went out, he's like, so it rained a lot the past few days and it didn't leak, so I'm bringing it camping. I'm like, okay.
This is not an RV. This is not like a Breaking Bad RV with Lee out in the middle of nowhere with an RV. This is like a trailer.
Trailer, tow, yeah, it's a collapsible one. And talk about do-it-yourselfer. Lee is like the ultimate do-it-yourselfer.
Oh, I know.
It's hilarious.
I'm well aware. I just love how his things go from one thing to another. Because when he first got it, he told me, he was like, yeah, I'm just going to use it for hauling things around, that kind of thing. And now you're telling me that he actually took that thing on a camping trip. Okay.
Yeah, well, he has two trailers. He has an actual trailer where he hauls things around with.
Yeah.
And then he found for $800 like this. It was $800.
I'm not touching that one.
I would run so far.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If the pictures that he sent me of that thing are worth anything, I would not spend $800 on that.
The Breaking Bad trailer is RV. I would rather.
Maybe.
With all of the stuff in it, I would rather go.
With all of the stuff in it, yes. That's $800 well spent. But that, no thank you.
Bullet holes included.
But yeah, exactly. But it's ventilation, so it's good, right?
Exactly. You know what's funny? We're talking about all of. You guys were right. After a while, the taste of Breaking Bad does start to wear off when you're watching TV shows. Like how pertinent, like how prominent it was when I after I finished the whole series. Now though, when I watch a show, it still is my standard.
Yeah, I can see how.
It's one of my standards. I'm like, there's not, as much as I love Star Wars, the storyline doesn't even compare to Breaking Bad.
Not at all. You're right.
There's a lot that doesn't even compare to Breaking Bad, and it's.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. But
I love that the main character doesn't survive. Spoiler alert.
Well, no, you're right. He doesn't survive, which is.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's great. But no, the taste of it eventually wears off. The more and more you get away from it, you get back to like regular things. But it's always going to be there. It's always there for me. I mean, between that,
always there now.
Between that, for me personally, between that, Sopranos, and I want to say it's either a toss-up between The Wire or Mad Men. Those are always going to be my standards. Nothing is ever going to be able to touch what those shows were.
I never watched any of those shows.
Okay.
I never watched because they were just so big.
Yeah.
I was like, it was a lot to take in. So I started TV shows like Suits, where the first season was good, and then after that, it was just downhill.
It was that, yeah.
I took on the charge of 24. I watched all 8 seasons, plus I watched the movie.
That's nuts.
That was fun.
That was a show for me fell off in like the 3rd or 4th season. Whatever season opened up and he was a junkie because like he had to like do work with the cartel, I was like, okay, this is way too much. Now he's a junkie, and now we have to go through like this whole day with him going through withdrawals. I'm done. I'm sorry.
It's all one day. And how much crap happens to him in one day? Like if we ever went through what he went through that one, not a chance.
You're dead.
Not
You're
a
dead.
chance.
So you're talking about a guy who's like in these hyper like unbelievable scenarios where there's like explosions and there's gunfire and people are trying to kill him, and throw on top of that he's on no sleep for like 36, 48 hours. If you look at the show, it's like, absolutely not. No, I would fall asleep at the wheel of a car and I'm dead.
And that would be the cool thing about that show was it actually took like each hour was an hour of the show. I liked that concept was really cool.
Yeah.
However, if you actually followed somebody for an hour, for like their whole day, it would be like 12 hours of downtime.
Probably.
6 hours of fluff, and then like a few hours here and there of stuff actually going on. So it wouldn't actually be what he like. It's so unrealistic.
It's really unrealistic, and you have to manage your expectations. What I most remember is like from the first season, there was like an episode where it's like, Jack Bauer, you are under arrest, you're under investigation, and it's like settled within an hour, and he's back out on the street in the next episode. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. This investigation is not over in an hour, sir. No, stop. But
not a chance.
It was, but I liked the first 2, 3 seasons of that show. I thought were fantastic. After that, it was like, yeah,
it was the same thing over and over and over.
It was the same thing over and over and over again. But even though Lee is not here, he did provide us with notes, because I did ask him, listen, you're the Star Wars expert. Chuck and I are not going to be able to replicate what you do with this, so please provide us with notes. And he actually did for this week's episode of Ahsoka, episode 3, titled Time to Fly. This episode was really short.
I was actually surprised.
I was really surprised. Like 38 minutes?
35?
Something, yeah, 35,
like that,
38 minutes. It was really, really short. And not a lot happened in the way of like progressing the story. It was just like a couple of fights. Like you had, the space fight, and you had what's her name? Doing all the training and everything. It was okay for what it was for this limited series, I guess. We get our second shot of like the Purgle that are out there flying around in space. It looks like giant whales, but for whatever reason they have like tentacles like on the bottom half of their body. It was
weird.
Yeah, kind of weird.
Like half octopus, half whale.
Yeah. Okay. That's a thing now.
Mm-hmm.
I love how so she went out into space. She had a suit on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just...
Mm-hmm.
Unlike Leia, who went out into space, and Mary Poppins her way back onto her ship.
Back in.
So I appreciate that they actually put like a suit on her so she could, breathe. That was clever.
So I'll be honest. It looked cool. I hated that entire scene, though. Hated that entire scene. 2 lightsabers against 3 spaceships. Like, no.
Yeah. It's a bit much.
Deflecting.
It's a bit much.
Yeah, right. From a ship.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It looked ridiculous. I'll say that it looked so stupid, because like they're firing at the ship and she's like not doing a good job because clearly the ship's getting hit, but she's just I don't know. That was a lot to take in.
Yeah. That one scene, I was like, yeah, like she's just like doing flips in space, and you're going up against spaceships. Like when she came out, I'm like, I said to myself, if she pulls out her lightsabers and tries to fight them with lightsabers, then she cut a ship in half with her lightsaber. I was like, I noped out in that scene.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm good.
I'm
good.
That was a lot.
It was a little ridiculous. It was a little ridiculous.
Just a little
bit. Like a Jedi lightsaber is cool.
I don't know. There was
destroying a ship.
So, Yeah, I mean, okay, so I want to get into some of Lee's notes because he does a much better job at breaking this down than I ever possibly could, or you could for that matter. He's a Star Wars
True.
guy. And the first thing that he has written down here is, as expected, everything is directly connected and following Rebels and Clone Wars canon, and they're actually doing a great job of adapting it to live action, yet still keeping that feel. So I don't know what feel he's talking about because those were animated and this is live. I don't know what feel he's talking about. If he's talking about just like what I have no idea what he means here. Keeping the feel. Still keeping the feel. I have no idea. I'm lost. With that one, I'm lost.
Or just keeping the feel that it's like the whole Rebels canon. Like it probably feels like, remember when you first watch Phantom Menace, you're like, this doesn't feel like Star Wars.
Not at all.
I'm guessing what he means when he watches this is it feels like
Maybe
it's a continuation of what Rebels is. It still feels like Star Wars. It feels like what you're getting the feeling of what you're expecting versus, oh, I want to watch Boba Fett, and what I thought I was going to get, I'm not getting. You know, when I watch Phantom Menace, it's not at all what I was expecting. I wanted Star Wars, not, this bright animated whatever it was.
It does. I mean, it fits. It feels like the prequel trilogy. I'll say that. Like this show, much like Obi-Wan, felt like the prequels. This doesn't feel like an OG Star Wars thing. Like I understand that. This feels very much like the prequels, especially the way that you have, the space battle, dogfight, whatever you want to call it. Like that entire sequence, even though I think it was stupid that she was on the ship fighting them with lightsabers, I thought the whole thing felt very, very prequel-esque. Even when you have the fighters come in and they're clearly like the bad guys, whatever you want to call them, Grey Walkers, Sith, dark side, whatever you want to call them. Even when they're coming in, like their ships look like pre-Imperial.
Right.
And I did like that. I thought that was a really cool aesthetic. But that's just, I mean,
the ships that when they were doing the whole dogfight, what it actually brought me back to was World War II, and the German planes that they used to dogfight with. They looked a lot like that.
Kinda.
They had the smaller wings.
Yeah.
They had the bigger nose where the propeller wouldn't usually be. Mm-hmm. And they actually even shot like the planes did then too. Like they were just quick. Yeah. And it was very quick. And it wasn't constant. Like the TIE fighters had that, beep, and then it would stop. And it was beep, beep. These were very quick, very fast. They were dog fighting.
Yeah.
Whereas X-Wings didn't do that the same way. This portrayed that very well. I actually appreciated that World War II 1940s feel to the dogfighting.
And it's cool the way that it was done. I just could have done without her on the ship, and I also could have done without like the New Hope callback where she jumps into the shooting booth or whatever it is, and she's like getting ready, and she's like, it was such a callback to like when Luke jumped on 100%. It in the Millennium Falcon. It was such like a thing for that. I mean, yeah, I forgive it, but at the same time, it's like this isn't that. Like you don't have to do that here. Everybody knows the story.
Right. It was New Hope meets. Was it Force Awakens where she found the Millennium Falcon?
Whatever the first one was. I don't know the titles of those movies.
Yeah. Because in that movie, when she finds it, the guns get stuck.
Yeah.
And she has to dive, and that's exactly what happened here as well too. And they did a very similar. So they kind of combined the two movies into this. Which that's the thing with Star Wars is there's so many callbacks that find something new. Don't go crazy. Don't go crazy like we're talking last week about time travel. If they actually introduce time travel, it's no longer Star Wars.
I think, yeah.
But I think to your point though, this big ring that they're talking about, right now there's 6 light speed engines that are going. They're massive. I mean, these things are massive.
Yeah.
I think they're going to use something like this to they're going to accidentally.
Wouldn't that be a trip? That would be awful. Okay, so we're trying to go to another galaxy, but we're accidentally going to travel back in time. Honestly, I wouldn't put it past Disney to do something like this at this point. I wouldn't. If it happens, it happens, and you know what? I'm along for that ride, because I want to see how this train wreck eventually just like implodes. Because that's what's gonna happen. Like, you're gonna open up Pandora's box with this entire thing. At least I think they will.
Well, they did it with MCU. I think that when Disney bought out MCU, it was the beginning of the end, and they're doing it now with Star Wars. And if George Lucas was dead, he would be rolling over in his grave right now.
Maybe. I still don't. I think there's a lot of people out there who miss George just because, like, well, at least it was his vision. And you got to remember, this is the guy that did the prequel trilogy, and those movies are not great. Like, that was his final gift to Star Wars, was the prequel trilogy. They're not good movies.
They're not, but the story is still cohesive with the original three.
You're right.
If he stayed on board story-wise and just had his hands in it, where, hey, we're not going to change this, we're going to keep this, and like Filoni was still at the helm and still doing all this stuff, but he was bouncing ideas off of Lucas and doing all that stuff and leaving Disney out of it. Like, if George just became the producer and was like paying for it and helping out and having his hands in it here and there, but wasn't writing it, directing it, and let somebody else newer, younger, that has the newer visions today to take with it, and let George still be a part of it, I think we get something different comparative now. But I think because Disney flopped so big on the sequel trilogy, that, to your point, if they do introduce time travel, it's going to be all to rewrite the sequel trilogy.
I'm also reading on because we're talking about, like, the callbacks in this episode. One of Lee's notes is the blind training in this episode was cliche but allowable. I don't understand how that's allowable. I kind of disagree with that. I thought that was really cliche, really on the nose, really a callback to, what Luke was doing.
They used the same lines.
I want you to feel it, yeah.
Well, he even said, how can I see with the blaster down?
Yeah.
That was a line that she said. How can I fight with the blaster down? I'm like, really?
It's very...
I do like the Titan feel of this, where they both fought blindfolded, where one was blindfolded and one wasn't, and they used practice swords versus the little ball that shot out, the little blaster ball.
What I do like that she failed. I do like that she wasn't, like, immediately able to pull this off. Not like Luke was able to immediately pull it off because, like, the Force was strong with him, his father, blah, blah, blah. But this rando, nobody, wasn't able to do much of anything against Rosario in this, like, or Ahsoka in this scenario. I do like that she's not just the immediate.
She couldn't even move it. She couldn't even move a cup.
Nope, nothing. Good.
and they messed up there as well too, because I looked for it. I didn't see anything. After she tried moving the cup, and then she gets called to go into the cockpit to do the fighting.
Mm-hmm.
The camera focuses on the cup for like 3 or 4 seconds. Nothing happens.
You were waiting for the cup to move?
I was waiting for something.
Yeah.
Why focus on the cup? What was the purpose of that? You had a shot, you had a still shot basically of a cup on a table for up to 5 seconds in this show. Why?
This is a good point. Yeah. I didn't think about it like that. There was no reason to focus on the cup.
Just walk away.
Just walk away. Just walk away from the whole thing. She couldn't do it. We're moving on. I agree with this. I like that. I didn't even think about that before.
Well, I'm thinking like, okay, is it gonna be like a, delayed reaction and she just didn't realize it? Is something weird gonna happen? We don't know. But nothing happened.
I think it
left you hanging.
I think in that moment, if the cup moved, like after she walked away, if the cup moved then, you would have fans out there speculating about what moved the cup. Like, because she walked away, so you know, woo woo woogity boogity, who else is on the ship? Oh my god, like you would have been
Right.
hearing about that. I think that's probably one of the reasons why that was a decision that they chose not to go down that road, which fine. But I like that she's bad at this.
Yes.
I love that she's bad at this. You know, if there's
She's
one
not Rey.
No, I was just about to say that if there's one massive mistake, and I'm not saying this to be insulting, but if there was one massive mistake that the sequel trilogy made, it was making Rey a Mary Sue. Just she's immediately really good at everything. I hated that about the about the prequel, about the prequel, about the sequel trilogy. It was so bad. Here, it's actually like she is training to become this. She cannot do anything. Yeah, she can fight a little bit. Yeah, she's good at tinkering around with electronics, but who cares? She cannot just immediately use the Force, which I love. I think that's fantastic. I would much prefer to watch her character like grow into something like that, if that's even gonna happen. So that's actually.
You know what's funny? Is this past week I because of this show, I was like, I just want to go back and just. My son's 4 years old, and I'm like, here we go. I'm gonna just go all the way through with him. So I started him on Phantom Menace.
Oh no!
I started him on. Well, now that we have everything, I'm just gonna start on episode 1 and just go all the way through. It's tough, I know. I want to start episode 4, but I was like,
I disagree with that. I don't think anybody's introduction to Star Wars should be Phantom Menace. That's like the worst possible place to start. Like, you have to start like, this is my childhood, and start with New Hope, and then go, and then they ruined it with this, and then they ruined it even more with these three over here. That should be the way everybody is introduced to Star Wars. It should be, you have to start with.
I totally agree.
Okay.
It's just, he's 4, so
fine.
He's not gonna.
That's fine.
But,
okay, fine.
But he got into it, and I was like, at first he's like, no, I don't want to watch it. And he started getting into it, and he couldn't take his eyes away. And then the pod race came up, and he was like glued to it. And from that point on.
That's the best part of that movie, is the pod race.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's fantastic.
Well, the fight against Darth Maul is really good too.
I like the fight too. But
so the fight scenes are actually in that movie are really, really good. The pod racing is really, really good. It's the special effects that ruin that movie, and Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
It's the special effects and Jar Jar Binks that ruined that movie. If it wasn't for those two things, it would be a much, much better film.
I think you're right, though. I think that maybe you're right. Because I could absolutely see how the prequel trilogy would appeal to kids a lot more, because it's so colorful and it's so lively, and you have this goofy character named Jar Jar making a fool out of himself all over the movie, and it's really funny, and there's poop jokes going along with him. I can understand that. How kids would really, I get that. That's fine. I do. Okay, so I do want to move on. There was something else in this episode that I hated, and it's tropey, where it's like, here's the commander or the general or the person on the ground who's like seeing everything, and then like that person has to go appeal to their bosses about, hey, this thing is going on, and their bosses don't listen at all, and it's just, well, why did everything go to hell? Well, you should have listened to me in the first place, and we wouldn't. That exact thing happened in this episode, and I hated it. You have General What's-Her-Face telling the council, listen, Thrawn is out there, something's going on, and the council's like, yeah, we don't need to investigate this, don't worry about it. Yeah, no problem. Dead. No problem. You even have one of the council members going, there are ex-Imperials all over our government right now, and it's never been a problem before. I don't see why it would be a problem now. Like, you absolute moron. Why does this always happen? Every time.
Well, we just arrested this guy because he actually was like, hail to the Empire, basically.
Hail to the Empire. Long live the Empire, hail to the Empire. A bunch of people went to jail. We found out in this episode they had to shut down an entire facility because there was this problem. But still the council is like, yeah, we don't need to worry about this. Don't worry. You're just being paranoid. Don't worry about anything. And it's like, really? Really? You're not going to help at all? So it's like, okay. So later on, when this massive ship that the bad guys are building to go get Thrawn, like, launches and takes off, I don't want to hear anybody in government ask, why was this allowed to happen? Well, you let it happen because you didn't want to help us stop it. It's so stupid. Why? Oh my God.
What I want to know is, when there is no Empire, both times when there's no Empire
Yeah.
or the beginning of the Empire, in the beginning, these massive, massive ships or space stations get built, and nobody knows about it. The 2 Death Stars, no one knew. It's like, what? How? This giant like hyperspace ring.
I love it.
Nobody knows
I
about
love
it.
it.
Like,
I absolutely I love it though, because it screams of like, you're all stupid. Like, okay, so
yes,
Palpatine takes in one movie, Palpatine took over and bore the Empire, and at the end of that movie, the Death Star is halfway built. Like, you see it, it's like right there. It's like, how is this being done? And nobody knew. You're right. You're 100% right here.
I just like, if the Jedi are so powerful they can sense these things, how come no one sensed anything? Anything.
You know, I've had this opinion about Star Wars forever. I don't think the Jedi are particularly smart. They're not bright at all. They're really not. They're really not. Because you're absolutely right. This massive construction on behalf of Palpatine, the Empire, is being built under, the Old Republic, like government, and no one knew anything was going on. Nobody knew what was up. Nobody knew this guy was up to no good. And here we go all over again, where you actually have General telling the council something's going on. And it makes it even worse, because it was like, she asks one of the guys, were you in the war? Oh, you weren't. You were just sitting back waiting to find out what side came up. I was in the war. I fought against these people. You would think that everybody would listen to her, but no.
Right.
No.
I was there. It doesn't matter. No one cares.
No.
We're in charge.
No.
So
no.
That's what matters. So I totally agree with everything you're saying. I think the best part of this episode was the space battles and the action that went on, aside from her pulling out her lightsabers whilst in space on top of her ship. Yeah. I thought that was a little campy. It was ridiculous. Outside of that, I thought the rest of it was like aesthetically pleasing. It was fun. If anything, this was a fun episode.
Yeah, it was
fun. This was a fun episode. It was a fun episode.
It didn't do a whole lot to like drive the plot, though. One thing that did happen that I thought was a little. At first I thought it was stupid, but then I forgave it. So when they land on the planet and they're in that like red forest area and they turn off their machines, they fly right over them. And then, the dark side lady even says, hey, they must be hiding in the forest. Maybe we should, regroup and turn around and go. Like, they don't go back to look. They just leave them out in the middle of the forest. They turn all their machines back on, and it's like, okay, that was completely useless. I don't understand. I don't know. I didn't understand why it was done that way. But that could be just me nitpicking at the show. I want to read some more of these notes over here. Will, your question about Ahsoka's stoicness was a good one. She wasn't always so stoic, but became so when she started questioning the Jedi Order. If that's the case with this character, it needs to be implied a lot more than it is. That she questions the Jedi Order, or if she's questioning the Jedi at all. Like, you're taking on a Padawan, you're palling around with this droid who is like very much like Jedi teacher, trainer, whatever this droid was. If she's questioning like the Jedi Order at all, the show needs to come out and say that in some way, shape, or form in order for me to get that. In this episode, we see a good mix of who she was and who she's going to become, perfectly executed by Rosario Dawson. Lee really enjoyed the Purgle in this episode. He's digging the story. He just wonders where it's gonna go. Of course, I think he's on the same page as us when I was just complaining about the trope of like the person on the ground complaining to bosses and it goes nowhere. Oh my god, the Chancellor and Counselor scene was as expected and it was well played, and that's basically all he said.
Well played? What does well played mean?
He just thinks that the scene was well played, I guess. And and I didn't finish reading, he disagrees with us. Ahsoka on top of the ship. Well done. Like the show. If he liked this,
Our friendship is now at question because of this
yeah,
one
a little
scene.
bit, a little bit, a little bit.
That's that was the worst part of the show.
I agree, but clearly he liked it. He liked it.
It's like I looked at it. I was like, when she's like, "Stay here," I'm like, "What is she gonna do?"
I'm going out there.
And then she goes out there, and I'm like, "What is she gonna do?" And then she walks out there, and I'm like, "What is she doing?" And then she pulls out her lightsabers, and I'm like, "You're an idiot."
Okay,
Like,
so hold on. So she does the jump off the ship, right? And she does the whole, somersault in the air and cuts the ship in half. And she lands back on the ship, but then something else happens and she has to jump, and now she's floating away in space. So
Yep.
Are we being selective with gravity in the way that it works? Like, it's perfectly fine for her to cut a ship in half, but when she has to jump, we can't do that. She has to float off into space.
Yes. No, we needed a cool way for her to have the ship adjust so it tapped her, so it brought her back down.
Okay.
So
Sure.
here's the thing too: is Sabine is clearly a better pilot than Ahsoka.
100%. I think that's the show's getting that out there. That's the whole
So
point
put
behind.
put Sabine in the pilot seat and put Ahsoka
Absolutely.
in the gun seat.
Absolutely.
Change it up.
The whole point of the pilot episode, where she's like speeding down that runway, and she like cuts the brake and like skids right underneath the speeder or whatever there that was trying to stop her, perfectly illustrates her ability as a pilot. Fantastic.
Right.
I do like that. Fine. And I agree with you here. Like, there's no reason why we should see Ahsoka pilot a ship ever again. Like, it'd absolutely be Sabine from this point on. I agree. Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
What's funny is I looked up. When we first saw her, the girl who plays Hera.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, who is that, and what has she played in?
She looks familiar. I just can't place it.
So I'm gonna name off. She was the main female character on Scott Pilgrim. What was it? Versus the World.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was the main character in a bunch of stuff. But from what I remember her from, she was the main character in Final Destination 3.
That's another one of those series where all of those movies kind of run together for me.
100%.
Like Final Destination
Except
and
for the
Saw,
logs.
all of those movies kind of run together for me. I don't know which one is which. Like, outside of the first ones, like everything else is just like, okay, this is just a big mess now.
Right. You have to admit though that when you're driving behind a log truck, you don't. When you're in a car and then you're behind a log truck, your first thought is
Final Destination.
Yes.
Yes.
Every time.
Yes.
Every time.
Makes no difference.
It's never going to happen, but it's that's your thought every time. But she was in that. She also played the villain in Sky High.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen Sky High.
Never seen this.
But she's been in a lot of stuff. Live Free or Die Hard she was in.
Okay.
The revamp of the movie The Thing.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So she's done quite a bit of stuff. She was in Birds of Prey, which I haven't seen.
That's where I know her from. I know her from Birds of Prey. That's where I know her from. Birds of Prey is... It's a movie. It's a movie.
So I don't understand. It's a Harley Quinn movie, right?
Yes, but Harley Quinn's the good guy. They make her like the unofficial hero, and like she's going through this whole like existential crisis thing where it's like her and Joker broke up or whatever like that, and she's like, fine, whatever, I don't need him. And she goes off and she forms like
a Suicide Squad type.
Suicide. Film. Yeah, she's basically like the hero and the leader of the Suicide Squad. Like, that's how they kind of set that up. It's really seeing Harley Quinn do that is really weird. It's really weird. it's not a bad movie. It's not a good movie. But it's not a bad movie. It's kind of okay.
Yeah.
They tried. It's okay.
Because
It's okay for what it is.
Because then they actually redid. They did another Harley Quinn movie, didn't they?
I have no idea.
No, she was in Suicide Squad, right?
Yes.
The new Suicide Squad? Yeah. And that was like the prequel to it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know.
I don't care.
I don't
care. I don't care about any of those movies. Neither. No, I'm not gonna watch the either Suicide Squad. I'm actually like, yeah.
I saw the first Suicide Squad with Will Smith.
It's not bad. I know, but like it's not. It was too. I don't know when you have a studio and they're handling these DC characters. I think it has to be done delicately, and if you're gonna make any of them the hero or the good guy, you can't just plop them in a scenario where they're gonna be the good guy. There has to be something else that happens. Like, why are they the good guys right now? Well, because Batman isn't here, so we have them. Okay, that makes no sense. I'm out. I'm sorry. I'm done. Like we went for how many decades of Batman like battling against like individual members of the Suicide Squad or whatever from like cartoons and comics and everything, and now all of a sudden here's this movie and they're the good guys now. Like no. Harley Quinn should be like unremovable from Joker. Like they should go together. All the like it's no. And nothing against Margot Robbie. I think she's a fantastic actress, but jeez. Okay. I think I'm done.
Yeah.
This is going to be a real quick night. I'm done with this episode of
This is a real quick episode.
This is a real quick episode.
The majority of this episode was the dogfighting.
Yeah.
That was the majority of this episode was the dogfighting, and that was about it.
Which is not something that you're ever going to hear me complain about of the special effects when it comes to like doing space battles or dogfighting in Star Wars. I think they all look fantastic. They know what they're doing. If there's one thing that I will say, you know, recently, and maybe this is just because of Disney's budget, so it's a positive, but they've always done something a little bit different in every like space battle dogfight they've done. They always try to add something different and new. Ahsoka outside of her ship was the new and interesting thing they did here. I don't like it, but at least they're trying something different, not just they're flying through space. They're trying to dodge one another. They're weaving in and out of this, that, and the other. Like, it doesn't always have to be just that. You can do other cool and interesting things. And just because I have a problem with this doesn't mean that I want them to stop. I want them to keep coming up with interesting ways to do dogfights. But yeah, that's
I'm with you.
All right.
I'm with you. All right.
Very good.
I'm done. You're good.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.
Have a great one.
Hey everybody, Lee from Black and White Reviews here. Just wanted to take a moment to thank you for tuning in, checking out our conversation. If you like this discussion and you want to hear more about this specific subject or other things, check us out on our podcasting sites, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, or Google Podcasts. We're up on pretty much all of them. So yeah, thanks again for popping by, and be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks.